coronavirus ended up being a much greater pin than anybody anticipated. And to some extent, it's to my opinion, somewhat unnecessary, because if you really study your thing and think out of the box, then there's all kinds of natural remedies you can do that are antiviral and boost the immune system and can keep you alive, and this would be nothing more than a flu. There's also the use of silver, with a nebulizer. So it almost seems like we're sacrificing the entire economy to keep the pharmaceutical companies happy.
Wow, I hadn't thought of it in those terms. I mean, it definitely looks like there's the economic sacrifice is underway, and with now the central banks and governments around the world can say, "Wasn't me. It was that ghost over there called coronavirus." So go blame the ghost. Go find the ghost and arrest them for these crimes that you think we've committed.
That's right, and that's the difficult part, because I don't see how it's feasible to bail out all the industries that have already shut down with no end in sight, without generating hyperinflation like Zimbabwe.
Exactly.
And that's all I'm talking about. They're printing the money like there's no limit.
Well, here's an interesting side to what's going on here. The capitalists like you and I and everybody in our group and everybody in our community that is hard money advocate, we've been not complaining, but we've been pointing out how awful socialism is, which to me, socialism is nothing but a misspelling of communism.
Right.
And here we have the number one plank of the Communist Manifesto dictating to the world how things are going to be, and that's what's happening. And the Federal Reserve, with their ZIRP, zero interest rate policy, and the QE infinity, $700 billion. I guess that's monthly that they're going to start doing that.
Yeah, because that's not nearly enough when you look at in the industries that are already shut down. And then even if this was to magically go away, the supply chains are disrupted, so it'll take a long time. And also for people getting back to normal, like how many people are going to ever take a cruise again?
Exactly. And a lot of people, I would imagine that a lot of people will think twice before getting on an airplane as well, because of the similar situation as being on a cruise ship. The cruise line industry is probably dead. I mean, that more than likely. I mean, they were already struggling and having all kinds of problems.
Out because all the cruise lines are offshore and they don't pay taxes. So are we going to bail out an industry that doesn't pay taxes?
Well, it's interesting you say that, because that's one of the things that's being talked about and discussed right now. And there was a gentleman on Tucker Carlson last night bringing that very issue up. It's like, okay, do we just bail out the world, or do we bail out American companies that are, and what type of strings do we attach to the bailout? I mean, if you have offshored or outsourced all of your manufacturing and you aren't going to bring that home, do we bail you out? Are you actually an American company? Well, you're not actually an American company if you have a headquarters here in Boise, Idaho, but your plant is in India. Well, you're not really an American company. You have an address and that's it. You have a post office box. That's not really a company. So
maybe the positive thing that may come out of this, although it'll be painful, is to bring back production back into the countries, Canada and the U.S., that the offshoring will end the vulnerabilities. The next rounds that are going to happen is when we run out of medication.
Yep. What's that going to look like?
That's right.
What's going to happen in 6 weeks when there is no penicillin, when your high blood pressure medication, daily high blood pressure medication is run out, or your daily diabetes medication is run out, or whatever other daily medication has now run out, and it's
That's
not going to be manufactured because for another 3 months because it's in China somewhere.
right. And
That
and the ingredients, even if you bring back the production, then you've got to source the ingredients, so that you're not dependent on any one country. So
exactly. I mean, I
reasonable.
think that there's a lot more to it than what most people are looking at this point. We're talking with Nick Barisheff, and he is the founder and CEO of BMG Group, and you can find all about what Nick and his company are doing over at bmg-group.com. And you have Nick, you've got a great line of products that puts you square in the middle of the precious metals community. And that's I want to kind of shift gears and look at that, because you have the BMG Bullion Fund, which was your original fund, and then you have the BMG Gold Bullion Fund, the BMG Silver Bullion Fund, and then you also have the BMG Bullion Bars, which makes you a bullion dealer. So you've
Right.
got these different funds, and you've got that are physical funds, I might add, and then you're a dealer. So what's going on with the precious metals market? Because I'm hearing reports from around the world that there's not any gold or silver available.
Well, we have to categorize that into two areas. So whenever there's been an increase in demand, the mints, the Canadian mint, the U.S. mint, have trouble keeping production up, on coins. So you can have a shortage on coin because they're already producing at capacity. But when you get into the larger bars, the London Good Delivery bars, there is no manufacturing constraints. There is no shortage. You can buy them. Now the dealers that sell coins, by and large, they will have a certain amount of inventory, and at prices at these temporary lows, particularly in silver, they're just going to say they're out of stock. They're not going to sell you silver that they bought at much higher prices. They'll just keep it off the market, waiting for it to come back.
So it's not a question of it not being available; it's that it's not for sale.
That's right. And when we look at the price gyrations in gold, the important thing is to look at 2007 and 2008, was that before the equity markets crashed in 2008, gold had a total of 3 declines, and then in the fall of 2008, it started its upward climb. So the thing is that gold kind of anticipates what's happening, and we had 200% greater margin debt currently than we had in 2008. So as the market unwinds, you're going to get margin calls, and people have to sell everything. So now there isn't an asset class that has performed. Gold is still slightly up when everything else is close to 30% down. So, relatively speaking, it's doing its job. Silver is hard to explain the ridiculous price, but the thing is, silver is acting temporarily like a commodity, which it does because it's half commodity, half monetary asset. So initially, in the previous corrections, silver lagged gold. Gold corrected initially, and then recovered quickly while the market was still declining. And then silver took even longer to correct. But ultimately, silver, I think, it first of all has to at least normalize, which is a 40-to-1 gold to silver ratio, and it's over 100 now. So the price of silver, just as a normalized gold to silver ratio, should be about $37 like today.
Yeah, it should be a lot higher than where it is right now, and I think that you're saying it should be around 37.
Yeah, just to be at 40-to-1, which is the normal, and at times silver has gone to a ratio of 20-to-1.
Yes.
But just to get back to normal, so there's a much bigger upside eventually in silver, because as the gold price rises, silver has to catch up and get back to a normalized ratio.
Does it? I hear that a lot, and I'm curious as to why that is. Why does silver have to catch up with gold when gold is a tier one asset, and which means that it functions as money, same as dollars or treasuries. It's categorized in the same way, but silver is looked at from the big monies as from their perspective. It's looked at as a commodity in the monetary aspect of it. Does it still play a part in what people are looking at in the way that they view silver?
Well, silver is kind of always considered to be like poor man's gold, because functionally it's the same thing, like the same attributes that gold has as money, so does silver. And silver has had a longer history of being money, as long or longer than gold.
Yes, much longer than gold, actually.
Even platinum, as opposed to palladium, has been money. It was money in Russia for 300 years. So all of those metals have identical attributes of why they function well as money. So we just have the anomalies. Gold is almost entirely a monetary asset, and it's held by the central banks. Silver is part commodity, part monetary asset, and it's not held by central banks and so on. But for individual people's point of view, they can collect it and save it just like gold if they can't afford gold.
What are your thoughts? I want to kind of change gears again, Nick. I want to get your thoughts on the CFTC, excuse me. The CFTC just recently changed their rules regarding the number of contracts that an individual corporation or trader or whatever can bring to market at any one time, and they upped it to 30,000 contracts. If you take 30,000 contracts and each individual silver contract on the COMEX is 5,000 ounces, that's 150 million ounces.
Right.
That conveniently lines up with the COMEX vault that JP Morgan operates. And do you think that this actually helps or hurts what's going on? Or why? What are your thoughts on that? Or have you put any thought into it?
The rules in terms of futures trading to my view, are absolutely ridiculous. Not just as it applies to gold and silver, particularly, but in all commodities. Like if you were able to naked short the equity market in unlimited amounts, imagine what the price of equities would be.
Oh my goodness.
This is absurd. There has to be limits when you said the last week, I think it was, in the after hours market, there was 16 billion of gold sold on the COMEX. Well, who would do that? And who has 16 billion to sell? Nobody.
No, that would take like what, 4 or 5 mines?
Yeah, the year's production out of the major mines and so on. So it's absurd that that's allowed. And of course, the price dropped. I don't know. It was like I think it was $50 that day, and it was done after hours when most of the traders are asleep, and to have the biggest impact. So this has been a farce all along.
But
It applies
doesn't
to the
this
same thing whether it's oil or wheat or any commodity. You can't just have unlimited naked shorts because you've got the ability to print money to cover your short position.
But now JP Morgan doesn't have to naked short. They actually claim they have a vault that somebody says that they have X number of ounces in it that lines up pretty conveniently with the 150 million ounces that they just limited the number of contracts to. So with those two in alignment, the naked short argument is now off the table.
Right.
So, and from my perspective, and who would be able to challenge that? I mean, no, outside of J.P. Morgan, is there another entity out there that would be able to step up and say, "Yeah, I've got 175 million ounces of silver, and I'm going to sell them at $45 an ounce." I mean, how would that?
Oh, this has been a problem all along. Like going back to the Hunt brothers, like they chose to buy their silver at the time through the COMEX, and they weren't doing anything wrong or illegal
Right.
to do it. So the COMEX changed the rules. They changed the margin and instantly bankrupted the Hunts.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was the whole idea was
Yeah.
to and they instituted a limit on the uh, option side as far as being able to sell it at a higher price, but you could sell it on the short side all you
Right.
wanted, as low as you want. It doesn't matter.
That's right.
So
So it's been a problem. Now, ultimately, it's frustrating for the moment, but ultimately, this has to blow up. And when gold normalizes to what it should be, like already we have a divergence in terms of physical and paper,
right.
and that's eventually going to get more and more. So that'll eventually blow up, and gold and silver will get to their normalized values.
Is that what we're seeing happening right now, Nick, with the premiums being at, whatever they are, almost 50% of what silver is in particular? I mean, you can't buy silver at $12 an ounce, but you can get
Yeah,
it.
well,
You can
it's
get it
basically that nobody will sell it to you at $12 an ounce.
right.
That's the issue.
Right, and that's my point is that are we seeing that decoupling going on right now? Because there's a lot of talk about that at this moment, and
That's right.
but that happened back in, like you said a moment ago, 2007, 2008. We saw the same thing.
That's right. and but it's still relatively minor, because when in my view the gold price, given all the announcements on monetary printing, should be well north of 1700, probably closer to 2000. So it's got some catching up to do. So I think the decoupling is just starting.
Do you think that the Shanghai Gold Exchange, is this their moment to step up, because that's a physically traded market? Do you think that that's what is the next step from here, is that people shift from the COMEX to the Shanghai Gold Exchange, and there's a better uh, price discovery mechanism in the Shanghai Gold Exchange, not to mention the other six physical gold markets that are coming online? Do you see that happening, or how do
Well,
you think that's?
ultimately, but right now, I think the retail demand, people are worried whether, whether it's China or North America, are worried how they're going to make their mortgage payment or the rent. So how many people have extra cash to buy any gold, which is what they should be doing. And secondly, people are bought into the myth of staying invested for the long term, and all the mainstream media, it keeps harping away. There'll be a correction. You don't want to get out. Well, it's going to go down at least another 50%, and you're going to have to go up 100% to recover. You're not going to live that long. You know, it's that simple. So it's a lot easier to get out now, even if you go to cash. If you understand things, go to gold, and then wait it out when the dust is settled and you see where things are going, and then you can cherry pick fantastic companies at pennies on the dollar. But staying invested is just ludicrous.
Well, they're staying invested. They aren't moving. They're
That's right.
just watching it drop.
That's right.
Hodlers, hold
And
on
it's
for dear
easy
life.
to sell. You can do it online with a couple of keystrokes and you're sold. And
Exactly.
you can buy back in whenever you feel like it. There's no point sitting there catching falling knives.
It's crazy. Nick, what has your undivided attention at this point? I mean, we know that the outside of, the health aspect of what's going on a global scale, I mean, is there something within that, or is there something outside of the conversation that we're having that has your attention, your full attention at this point?
Well, it's just I don't think anybody contemplated uh, the pin being the corona, you know, virus, and the implications and the government reaction and so on. And the next thing is coming, all the bailouts. Like every industry is shut down with no income. And how long is it going to take to get them back up and running? So there's going to be a huge transition, and hopefully in the end we're going to come out of this on in an improved society with repatriating production and so on and so forth. But have you read the book The Fourth Turning?
I've not read it, but I'm very familiar with the concepts.
Yeah, but that's exactly what we're at. But coming out of the fourth turning is like a renaissance. So hopefully we all get to live through that.
Yeah, hopefully so. I mean, that's kind of what I'm hoping for. I'm 57 years old, and I'm really hoping that I get to see the other side of the collapse. I know we are, or reset, or whatever is going to happen. I know that we all know that something is going to happen, and this very well could be the beginning stages of that. And I agree completely, Nick, that what is happening right now is the absolute justification of what President Trump was saying when he was campaigning. Love him, hate him, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. But the fact of the matter is that he was saying when he was campaigning that we needed to bring home those jobs, we needed to bring home manufacturing, and the
Yeah,
reason that we need to do that is because we are in a vulnerable, dangerous position. And guess what? That has been fully 100% exposed.
that's right. So
And
that's the thing that now, and it's well, if you look at after the Great Plague, feudalism ended, and you had a whole renaissance. So let's hope that's what's going to happen.
I think I think there's the real potential for that hopeful uh, aspect to be very pervasive, not only in this country but around the world. I mean, you've got some of the pieces that have been put into place, like Bolsonaro down in Brazil, and even though Salvini has limited power in Italy, he still has a voice, and a he still has a voice and a following. And if you look at what's happening in France, Macron is an idiot, and he's been fully exposed, and the UK with Boris Johnson. So you've got these different movements that have all been saying the same thing, that we love you over there, but we love us over here more, and we're going to take care of us, and you need to take care of you. And
Right,
that's what I think is getting ready to happen. And
right.
that's what, whether you are I don't think that it's going to matter. I think that all of the political shields are going to be dropped. I mean, I may be wrong, but
No,
the
I
playing
think that
field has
you're
been kind of
absolutely right.
leveled.
So that the only difficulty is surviving the transition.
There you go. And how do we do that? What's that going to look like?
Well, in my view, I've always held, and it's interesting that in our clients that hold bullion bars, and we've got many clients that have over $1 million in physical with us. Um, these people are the sort of the out of the box thinkers, so they buy gold, and they also are fully up to speed on the alternative health issues, whereas the mainstream has bought the Kool-Aid in the financial system and the medical system. And it's interesting that if you look up colloidal silver on Google, you get a bunch of negative articles, disparaging it.
Yep.
If you look up colloidal silver on Dogpile, you've got both some, very positive articles and some warnings. So Dogpile is a better, more accurate search engine, but you get a totally negative um, kind of response out of Google.
That's your first clue that that you're on the right track, that it's the right thing to have in your system.
That's right. That's right.
If Google says it's bad, rest assured it's probably really, really good.
Right. Well, that's what I say for the colloidal silver has been around. Like I had a water business before, and silver is used to disinfect water. I have a colloidal silver generator in my pool and hot tub, and it's being used. Surgical instruments are made out of silver, and it's a given fact. The problem is, from a pharmaceutical point of view, is you can't patent it. It's cheap and it's naturally occurring, but there isn't any known virus, fungus, or bacteria that can survive it. The trick is getting it into you. There's no point drinking it. You have to get it to where the virus is or the bacteria is. So that's for purposes of viral pneumonia, you use a nebulizer.
So you said drinking it doesn't do any good. So if I
because it
have
gets deactivated in terms of all the stuff in your stomach. But if you've got viral pneumonia, and there's never been anything for viral pneumonia other than hope your immune system takes care of it. But colloidal silver in a nebulizer form has a mist that goes into your lungs and will disinfect whether it's bacteria or virus, and no negative side effects, no nothing. And the issue is that simple to solve, but the mainstream is all against it to protect the pharmaceutical. They'd rather force everybody to have vaccines.
Of course. Vaccines that you can't sue the manufacturer
Right.
if something goes wrong.
That's right.
So, well, Nick, what is there anything you would like to leave the audience with before we let you get back to your afternoon?
Well, my two thoughts are I encourage people to think out of the box, and to me, not stay invested. You even to just go to cash, but there's no point sitting there getting clobbered, because I think we've got at least 50% more decline to go. And eventually, if you understand gold, you'll see that all the government proposals and actions are going to lead to high rate of inflation, possibly hyperinflation. You just can't print this kind of money without any consequence.
They are looking at printing an enormous amount of funny money.
That's right. So to survive this, you have to step out of that paradigm and realize that there's a new paradigm coming.
Exactly. Well, Nick, it has been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, as it always is, and I appreciate all your time. And you can find out more about what Nick Barisheff and his wonderful team over at BMG Group, what they have going on, if you go to bmg-group.com, you can find out about the various products that he has to offer. And Nick, thank you so much for all your time this morning.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure.